All right. In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente, and I'm joined by my co host, the Libra icon, Dwayne. What's going on, Dwayne?
What's going on? Been a little while, but we're back on the saddle and ready to get into all the wonderful world of sports. Let's go.
Yeah, man, it has been a while, so bear with us as we try to, wade through these little ebbs and flows of the sports world right now where there's not really too much going on to be as current as we have been. But continue to rock with Know the Score. Follow us on Twitter at KTSPod. You can find us on the web at cspn.us. You can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. So we're going to start with some NFL news because the NFL is never really out of the news. They
Right.
figure out a way to always keep themselves relevant.
Absolutely.
And Bob Kraft was like, hmm, let me make some news. I won the Super Bowl like a month ago, been riding high. And then all of a sudden comes through on the wires that Bob Kraft has been brought up on charges of soliciting prostitution after an investigation into a sex trafficking ring inside a day spa in Jupiter, Florida. So, of course, that came out on a Friday. That's usually the media dump. And that had inspired a lot of jokes and just a lot of like, what in the world is going on? So, Dwayne, what were your initial thoughts when you saw Bob Kraft catching charges for trying to get a little extra something something inside the day spa?
That he got his seventh ring. That was my first thought. Yes. Ring number seven. So, yeah. So, one of 25 people charged in connection to this. This was just something real wild. I guess this has just been something going on for quite some time. So I don't know if it was a one time thing, if it was a long time thing, but man, you don't need to be doing all that. Of course, my other initial reaction was he was hanging with Meek and Gucci too much, but that's neither here nor there. Um, but no, those are jokes. So anybody listening that loves Gucci or Meek, I'm just kidding. So please don't flood my mentions. Okay, so but this was crazy. Like out of all the people, the owner who is supposed to be like the one of the most influential owners of the last quarter century gets caught up in something so crazy and now this is gonna. I think this time he's gonna probably be on his own in terms of like getting support from the owners or getting support because the owners are subjected to the personal conduct policy just as much as the players are. So, Roger Goodell, it's your move now. What are you going to do in regards to this? Jim Irsay had the hammer thrown at him, but are you going to do the same with Robert Kraft, even though he's got a lot of influence? We just have to wait and see.
The report is allegedly there are two incidents that are caught on camera.
Oh Lord.
hmm So they got him red-handed, apparently, according to the press conference they held, where the reporters were asking the pertinent questions. So he has two charges up against him. So we'll see. This won't jeopardize his team per se. This isn't a Jerry Richardson situation where he could be stripped of the Patriots and a whole new ownership group will be brought in. But like you said, it's just a kind of black eye on the ownership group, and he'll have to go through the conduct policy. Jim Irsay was suspended for 6 games and fined $500,000. So that's pretty much the benchmark for owners acting up. So we'll see once this is all sorted out and whatever comes down where Bob Kraft gets put on that. But yeah, just a off the field story that's totally wild.
Yeah.
And I think what's like really getting people all caught up with it is like, it's one thing to just be like, hey, the day spa was doing naughty things if you paid a little extra money. But I think what's getting people really caught up is like it's like sex trafficking. Like, oh,
Right.
okay. So like, that's like a whole different spin on everything. So,
Yeah.
once more facts come out, that actually may be the thing that kind of does them in and actually may turn things more sour than they are right now. But as all things that are caught up in litigation and dealing with the police and courts, you just have to wait and see how things shake out.
Pretty much.
Speaking of things
All
that
around still follow.
yeah, speaking of things that happened off the field that impacted the field, Kareem Hunt is back in the league after the video came out of him striking a woman and then the Chiefs making swift actions and cutting him. He's been picked up by the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns are, getting in, the bargain basement price. We would still be under his rookie deal. This would be his third year in the league. Of course, he has to go through whatever, penalties the commissioner will deal out to him as he gets reinstated and, will be suspended and so forth and so on. But as far as the risk versus reward, Dwayne, how do you feel about Cleveland picking up Kareem Hunt? Is this a good move or is it something that may backfire in the end?
Well, it's not good in terms of pretty much seeing how everything unfolded and pretty much what's the word I'm looking for? The having somebody go through all this, but it's going to be really on how Kareem Hunt responds to this. You know, we saw how and Kareem Hunt is still young. He's still a young, dynamic back in terms of his ability. I mean, when we had the whole Ray Rice situation, Ray Rice literally got blacklisted from the league pretty much, even though everything ended up, working out for him and his now wife. But with the whole Ray Rice thing, we don't forget Ray Rice was on the downside of you hit that running back age at 30, it goes downhill from there. And at the time, he was only averaging like 2 or 3 yards a carry. Kareem Hunt is more of a dynamic back. So the reward and the payoff, and you add him in a backfield, it's already loaded with Duke Johnson and Nick Chubb. That's you got Kareem Hunt in there. That's going to be a loaded backfield behind Baker Mayfield, and you got Jarvis Landry, David Njoku, and you got offensive minded coach like Freddie Kitchens, who was a former offensive coordinator. So for the Browns on the football side of things, it's a really good move. You get them at a bargain price. If Kareem Hunt is really definitely remorseful from his actions, which from what I saw in his interviews, he did look like he literally like his whole world got blown up, but he also knew that that was gonna happen, and had he not lied about it, it probably would have been. He probably might have still been a chief, but you know, it's what it is. It is what it is at this point. Even if there's outrage, people really gonna be upset with the Browns. At the end of the day, it's a business, and you gotta do business moves, even if people don't like said business moves.
What Kareem Hunt and Michael Vick should show these players is no matter what you do, tell the truth when they ask you. Because guess what? They probably got Olivia Popes and other Ray Donovan type people around that can maybe help you if you tell the truth from the beginning.
Right.
But if you come out and lead them down the wrong path and then, they find out that it was something else, yeah, then you're really going to have a hard time in all these circles. So it's always best to tell the truth when there's millions of dollars involved there, guys. Antonio Brown, he met with the Steelers. and both sides agree that it's just about time for them to part ways. What's really going to suck for the Steelers, though, is they just signed Antonio Brown to that big contract. So when they trade him, they about to take all that salary cap hit, and the other team is going to be like, thank you. But yeah, it's just gotten to the point where I guess he sees Juju Smith-Schuster on the horizon. He kind of sees how they treated Le'Veon Bell. It looks like, in a way, he's tired of Ben Roethlisberger shit. So, change of scenery is needed for Antonio Brown. My question to you, Dwayne, is where is the best place? I'm not, all 29 teams want him. All 29 teams can't make it fit and work under the salary cap. But, where in your estimation, is the most logical places or place for Antonio Brown?
Oh boy, it's a very good question, and so probably the ideal situation. I mean, it's like I said, it's ideal for all 29 other teams. Well, we already know 4 teams that he's not going to. He's not going to New England. He's not going to Baltimore, Cincinnati, or Cleveland. So we could count those 4 out. So all the other 25 teams that are left have a shot. Their preference is to send them to the NFC. So you would say you take out the 9 other AFC teams. And so now you have 16. So now you could have a nice little tandem in Dallas of Cooper and Brown if they could make it work, which you probably can't.
Don't wish that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Well, I was about to make you feel better. I was going to say Washington would be a good, nice spot for him.
We can't afford them.
Well, you just killed my optimism there, and then I was going to say we also need a guy to throw him the ball.
Oh no! We first off, we'd have to cut like all our good players and then some old people just to be able to afford this contract. We can't do nothing in free agency this year, man. We're that Alex Smith contract. It's the worst right now since it looks like he's not going to be able to play football next year.
So, with that being said, since you just took out my Washington theory, how about the Giants? Especially since Odell Beckham Jr. just signed a big contract, and you could do a trade with the Giants, Brown for Beckham. Now, would it be straight up, or would you have to throw a few things in there? I don't know, but it seems like a lot of people in the Giants organization are kind of getting fed up with Beckham. And, you got a disgruntled Antonio Brown, so that's a possibility. You could also have Detroit, who needs a top receiver. They haven't had a top receiver really since Calvin Johnson. Kenny Golladay could be that guy, but he hasn't really emerged as that guy. And let's see, who else? I don't see the Panthers having the assets to do a trade for Antonio Brown. I mean, I did have a little dream of Cam Newton throwing the ball to Antonio Brown, and then McCaffrey. That would be a pretty good squad, but I don't know if the Panthers have enough to do that. The Steelers don't have to be pressed. That's the main thing. They're not really pressed to do anything. So Antonio Brown wants to sit out. He might as well just pull a Le'Veon, just sit out. So I would just say probably the best thing I could think of at the moment is a trade for Odell Beckham Jr. and you send Antonio Brown to the Big Apple and play for Blue.
All right. That's a very interesting theory I haven't heard before. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye out on that. Something else that we kept our eye out on that was quietly handled behind the shadows was Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid. They settled in their collusion case against the NFL. So a lot of people are reading, a lot of mixed signals into that, like, they sold out for the cause, or you know what, it was so bad that the NFL knew they were going to lose, so they just needed to come to grips and settle with these guys. So Eric Reed was fortunate enough to get a job with the Panthers. He had to take a lot of P tests, but the Panthers made it worth his while. They gave him a 3-year extension right after the season. So he's taken care of. Plus, he's gotten this settlement from the collusion. So all eyes turn to Colin Kaepernick. Dwayne, in your estimation, what should be his next move? Should he just continue to go down the activist route with whatever the settlement was from the NFL, and now he's got funds to go hard and do this as a lifetime thing, or should he try to, now that everything is clear, try to get back into the league, or is it possible that he can do both?
Wow, I would say he could do both. I mean, why not do both? Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, this is something where this team, there's a team that could pick him up, and it's the same team that Eric Reed's on, the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you could look at it as, Colin can back up Cam Newton, especially if something goes wrong with Cam Newton's shoulder, which he's had a lot of problems with. You could also say that if he does go the activist route, he does have the funds for his cause, and he can continue to donate to different groups and different causes that are in this fight for equality and fight for justice, social justice. But I think at the end of the day, even with the opportunities that the AAF does have for Colin Kaepernick, but this guy's an NFL player. He went to the Super Bowl. He's better than a bevy of quarterbacks that were called and signed the contracts over the last several years. And I hope he does get another opportunity because this is a great player and he deserves a chance. I mean, just because he took a knee doesn't mean he should be blacklisted, but that's unfortunately the reality of the situation because these NFL owners are pussy and they're scared of that orange buffoon in office.
And our final two notes in the NFL, Kyler Murray, he's committed to play football. So he's turned down the Oakland A's and the guaranteed money to come into, their spring training and pursue his baseball career. The MLB, they had even petitioned a special exemption to try to get him a little bit more money to try to entice him to come to baseball just because of the notoriety and the fame that he has off of playing football at Oklahoma and winning the Heisman Trophy and being, the talk of, college football. So now this is somebody who, depending on how things go with the workouts and how tall he is and how big his hands are, may actually drop down to the Washington football team at 15. But by all accounts, he'll probably get scooped up around in between 10 and 13. So how do you see Kyler Murray fitting in to the NFL, Dwayne?
Why not? I mean, he's he may be an undersized quarterback, but look at Russell Wilson, look at Drew Brees, undersized quarterbacks who have been very successful. And there's a knock on him about his height, size of his hands, but he's a very great football player, and I'm sure it was definitely difficult for him to forego all the baseball money because he is a very great second baseman. He's a very great player, and that's why the A's drafted him so high. And if it doesn't work, if his stock drops, if he ends up not working out, the A's I'm sure the A's hold his rights, even though he gave that money back, right?
I think he might have to go back into the draft again because
Okay.
he didn't take their money.
Okay. So so yeah, there is that. So I think that even though I think his love was more for football than it was for baseball, and you got to go with what you feel is best, and he's going with what he feels best, and that's all that matters at this point.
And our last note will be the NFL Combine starts on March the 1st. Dwayne Haskins has committed to throw. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to be doing anything at the Combine, but the Combine's always fun to see. I like watching the defensive backs personally. They're always the last day. Everybody gets enamored with the quarterbacks and who can run the fastest when it comes to the skill positions. But, you can definitely see some just freakish athleticism. They may not be great football players once they put the pads on, but, you get to see some great feats of strength and hand-eye coordination when these guys do these things at the Combine. So those 3 days, the first, second, and third, should be pretty fun. I'm pretty sure everybody on Twitter who follows like Mike Felder in the bleachers, that would be a good person to follow if you want to get some in depth into some of these guys and what they were in college. This is kind of your first time looking at them at the Combine. So go ahead and check that out and see who could be the next star for your team. This is Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente. I'm being joined by my co-host, the Libra icon, Dwayne. You can find Know the Score on the CSPN network. You can find the CSPN network on the web at cspn.us. So we'll turn over the page to Major League Baseball. The two free agents became one free agent out there as Manny Machado. He finally signed a deal. He got the 10-year, $300 million contract with the San Diego Padres. So the San Diego Padres have the number one farm system in all of baseball. Last year, they signed Eric Hosmer to a big deal as well. So it looks like the Padres are trying to position themselves to become a contender out there in the National League West with this big money deal to get Manny Machado. Were you surprised that it took this long? And were you surprised that it was the Padres that signed Manny Machado, Dwayne?
I wasn't surprised about how long it was taking because at this point when they didn't have a deals at the winter meetings, it's kind of like the owners pretty much showing that a lot of them were like, do we want to have the same effect as the Pujols deal? And you look at that over Pujols deal, I mean, he's kind of reemerged. I know injuries have kind of slowed him down, but he hasn't really been the same since that big mega deal that he signed. But I think what did surprise me, though, it was the Padres that did make this move. But it just shows that it was a good move because it shows that they want a winner. And they started that by signing Hosmer. Then they did the signing. Then they got the signing of Machado, and then you don't give up any of your prospects in the system. So now you got the corners covered. You got you got a nice core right there, Hosmer, Machado. You got great depth in the farm system led by Fernando Tatis Jr. And this is a really great move for San Diego. And now it's going to be up to them now to, stay healthy, get through spring training unscathed, and then, get off to a good start of the season. And now with the only domino that's remaining with Bryce Harper, and he could go to many different destinations. A couple of NL West teams in the mix as well, and we'll just have to see what happens from there.
The Dodgers, they're rumored to be back in the Bryce Harper talks. Now, I don't know if that's just Bryce Harper's people trying to create a false market so they can get like $310 million in their deal, but they're going to try to get a little bit more than what Machado got because they figure to themselves that Bryce Harper is the better ball player. But it appears that the Phillies are the team that are going to land Bryce Harper. It seems like they've had the inside track since the talks have been going on. The Phillies have been working hard in the offseason to become a contender. They signed Gene Segura as well. So it looks like Philadelphia's trying to make they were, a team who contended for 3/4 of the season last year. They faded the last fourth of the season. But it looks like they're trying to get the reinforcements up to try to win the National League East this year. Would Bryce Harper be the missing piece to make the Dodgers the World Series champions this year because they've been to the World Series the past 2 years to come up short? Or does Bryce Harper, if he goes to the Phillies, put them in a National League Championship Series?
I say neither. What about the San Francisco Giants? And you could also say that he could maybe reverse that odd even curse, even though the even year didn't work out for the Giants. I think they could still be contenders, but if in a perfect world, I would rather see him in LA than Philadelphia for obvious reasons. But we could probably, if Philadelphia does have the inside track, if they're smart, they will get this deal done so they can get this deal done so they can, make sure that he gets there because the owner went to Vegas and really nothing's come about of this. Looking for a resolution, but nothing's come out of this. So it's just a matter of if he goes back to Philly and is Bryce Harper going to be in tow or not.
Yeah, we'll see. It's been a weird offseason, like you said. It appears that the owners are not falling into that, trap of paying a guy who's 25, 26 years old, a 10-year deal. I think it's the years. I don't think they mind parting with the money, but I don't think they want to get locked in because, the first 3 years, maybe the first 5 are the most value you'll get out of that particular player. And then, like you said, if there's any injuries or the downturn happens, those last 5 years are definitely not an equal return in investment. So I think, a lot of people were saying Bryce Harper might not do a 10-year deal. He might do like a 3-year deal and just get, as much money as he can and then just do it again in 3 years just because, the economics and the landscape is changing in baseball. But we'll definitely be interested to see what happens. It should come down here in the next couple of days. I don't think it's going to linger much more past this week. I think by the weekend he'll be in somebody's spring training.
Yeah, I agree.
Now it's time to turn over to the NBA, where we had the trade deadline. So we had a lot of people moving right before the All-Star break. The biggest news definitely was the 76ers. They acquired Tobias Harris from the Clippers. The Clippers are getting into, gear up for free agency mode, trying to attract as many free agents as they can to try to, turn themselves around and get themselves in position to go after a championship in the next few years, setting themselves up for free agency. The Raptors acquired Marc Gasol from the Grizzlies for Jonas Valanciunas. The Magic, they traded for Markelle Fultz. Chicago, they traded Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker for Otto Porter. And the biggest news of the trade deadline, of course, the Lakers and the Pelicans, they failed to complete the trade for Anthony Davis. And the Pelicans GM, Dale Demps, he gets fired, and Anthony Davis has been put on a minutes restriction for the rest of the season. So we'll start there. The Lakers, once again, trying to make a big move with the Pelicans as their trading partner. And this time the NBA didn't have anything to do with it. The Pelicans were just trying to see how far they could go So the Lakers were like, man, we trying to give y'all everything, but y'all can't have everything. So once that fell through, once the Lakers made the quote unquote Godfather offer, and the Pelicans were like, yeah, but could you add one more pick in there? The Lakers were like, no, man, we're not going to do this. So they'll try again at the end of the season. Danny Ferry has taken over as the Pelicans GM. This is a weird situation because Anthony Davis isn't a free agent yet. He's still got 1 year left on his deal. So, I mean, in all theories, the Pelicans could just be like, oh, we're not doing anything. We're just going to get our maximum value out of you until next trade deadline comes up. But, I don't think they'll do that through their offseason. But do you think that with all this turmoil and the trade not happening, that was pretty much the Lakers' last hopes at actually trying to be a competitive playoff team for this year?
I would say, I guess I might answer a little differently. I would say this: there's no rush at all for the Pels to make this deal. That's one reason why. And I also think that there's a certain player that wears green that they are coveting more than what the Lakers are offering, and that's Jason Tatum of the Celtics. I think, well, that's when, I guess that was probably during when Del Demps was the GM. So this is pre Demps firing. I think one of the reasons why they make the deals because, of course, because the Celtics can't make the deal for Davis because of the Kyrie Irving trade that they made the year before and the Derrick Rose rule, and can't have two rookies on a max deal. So, but I think Del does was coveting Jason Tatum a little more than Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma. And I think, of course, the Celtics have 4 draft picks in the first round for next year. They have their own pick. They have the Grizzlies pick. They have the Kings pick, and they have the Hawks pick, I believe. So they have a bevy of draft picks, 4 of them in the first round, and it could either keep those assets or trade them away. And so, even though there was probably a lot of rumors saying Davis didn't want to be there, which, he kind of killed by saying all 29 teams are on my list, during All-Star weekend. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, but there's no real. I don't know what Danny Ferry is going to do. I mean, in all honesty, actuality, they don't have to do anything, but I'm sure they're going to have to do something because you don't want to go on the next season with all this. Where is Anthony Davis going to go? Is he going to stay? Is he going to we don't, and that's going to be good for us, because we get to report it. But I know it's going to be bad for the team going down the road.
Do you think the acquisition of Tobias Harris, has put the 76ers into the driver's seat when it comes to the playoffs of representing the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals this year?
I think it does. And, the Sixers made a lot of moves, and that was probably the biggest move that they made, getting Tobias Harris. And, not only do they get Tobias Harris, they literally have an expiring contract. So even if he goes into free agency, they could have the chance to resign him, but his salary won't be on their books anymore. So it's a win-win for the Sixers to get a quality player that can get them over the top. But everybody's going to have to buy in, and by everybody, I mean Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy Butler's already had those issues with the Sixers about having you know, having to deal with Simmons and Embiid, and then also having fits about not getting the ball. And now you add another scorer to the mix who can really put the ball in the basket. And so everybody's going to, it's just going to be a matter of if he can buy in. I know he's never been in a situation where he's had so much around him. We saw what happened when he did have everything around him in Minnesota, and that didn't really work out. Jimmy's an alpha dog, but this also is a chance for the Sixers to really make noise in the postseason. If they'll get to the NBA Finals, they should at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals, where I think they'll probably play the Raptors.
All right. Is there another, before we move on to All-Star Weekend, is there another trade or acquisition that I didn't cover that kind of stood out to you that you think is going to help a team get over the hump?
Trying to think. I think the only one that nothing that was not mentioned really stood out to me, but the one that you did mention that fascinated me was the Marc Gasol trade to the Raptors. That stood out to me, but that's about it.
All right. All-Star Weekend was in the Queen City of Charlotte this past weekend. Team LeBron, they overcame a 23-point deficit in the second half, and they beat Team Giannis to win the All-Star game. Very good fourth quarter, really second half for Team LeBron. Dame Lillard and Kevin Durant spearheaded the comeback. I think the play of the All-Star game will be the bounce pass alley-oop Steph through to Giannis for the spectacular dunk. Anything else that stood out to you in the All-Star game, Dwayne, that you'd like to point out?
No, nothing that really stood out to me. I was actually at work, so I didn't get a chance to watch it like I really wanted to. But I do know that there was, just having it in Charlotte was pretty cool to me, being from there and all that jazz. So, uh, good job by the Hornets. Shout out to everybody at the Spectrum Center that I know that still work there for putting on a great show. So, shout out to them.
Yeah, give a big shout out to Adam Silver for giving a special exemption for both Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki, as they both got to participate in the All-Star game in their final seasons. Dirk Nowitzki was 3 for 3 in the first half, shooting threes. I think that might have been all he played. And Dwayne Wade got in and, got to throw back to time a little bit and throw alley-oop to LeBron. So, it was cool to see them get a chance to be recognized and have the fans thank them one last time at the All-Star game. Now on the Saturday night, of course, the dunk contest. What you may feel about it may have changed in the last 20 years, but it can still make a star out of somebody. So Hamidou Diallo of the Oklahoma City Thunder was the winner of this year's dunk contest, and now everybody's waiting for him to get in games and see what he can do. So how did you feel about this year's competition? I thought Dennis Smith Jr. had a real good chance there, but he messed up a couple of dunks there in his attempts and kind of had to settle for a little bit less spectacular dunks in his attempts. So I think that knocked him down some points. But how did you feel about the dunk contest this year and the overall winner?
I felt like it was. I mean, it was okay. I mean, because a lot of the stuff we've seen before. I mean, the Diallo dunk over Shaq really stood out. The ripping the jersey, showing the Superman was pretty cool. But I think the skills competition was my favorite part of the night, especially when Jason Tatum threw that ridiculous half court heave to beat Trae Young, and that was one of the plays of the day. And then Joe Harris ruining the homecoming of Steph Curry. and the Curry brothers, pretty much, and that really was probably the best part of the weekend for me.
Yeah, Joe Harris with the upset, man. He came out. He was the first shooter in the 3-point contest, and he put up a big number, 25, and nobody could catch him. And he stayed hot through the finals as well. So big shout out to him, and a huge upset in the 3-point contest. Steph did put on the show though. He did hit 10 shots in a row to start off that final round, but he got cold. He needed all the money balls to tie Joe Harris and send it into a shootout, but he missed one, and Joe Harris is your champion. And then, yeah, the skills competition, I think, in the last couple of years has actually elevated itself because the big guys now are very capable of winning. Um, and like you said, Jason Tatum and Trae Young came down to the final, and it looked like Jason Tatum's ball knocked Trae Young's out of the rim, and his went in because they had to make a 3-pointer to complete the obstacle course, and Trae Young was about 10 steps ahead of Jason Tatum, so Jason Tatum got to half court and just said, "Fuck it," he dropped the bomb. So that was cool to see. So yeah, I thought as just like you, the skills competition, the 3-point shootout, definitely were 1 and 2 or however you want to reverse the order when it comes to the highlights of this year's All-Star Weekend. But always fun. Donovan Mitchell got off in the rookie sophomore game or USA versus World game. He was the MVP of that game. He looked really good. Yeah, he looked really good. What's my man, Jason Collins from the Hawks? He had a pretty nasty dunk in that game.
Yeah.
So that's our NBA talk for right now. As the playoffs are getting close, I think there's like 25 more games left in the season. The Golden State Warriors are talking about starting to rest some of their guys and back-to-backs here as they're making the East Coast a road trip. So hopefully you'll be the team that gets the first game, because if you're just in the seat that gets the second one, you might not get to see all your stars. But the Nuggets are right on their trail as far as getting the best record in the West. They're only 1 game behind. So we had questions about the Nuggets earlier in the season, and they're still here coming down to the last quarter pole of the season, Dwayne. So it looks like they're going to be a real problem to deal with when the playoffs start.
I told y'all. The Nuggets and the Bucks were 2 of the teams that we thought, or most people thought, because I was like they're legit, but most people thought they would fall off. But they are a legit team. They're well coached. They have a lot of depth, and they're even getting even deeper in terms of reinforcements as Isaiah Thomas is going to be coming back. So we're going to see if he's fully healed from that hip and if he can definitely be an impact player when the playoffs come for Denver.
All right, so we'll shift over to college basketball for our final topic of this episode. And we'll start off with where else? Cameron Indoor Stadium. Zion Williamson plays 36 seconds versus UNC before leaving the game with a knee sprain after his shoe blew out. That still left about 19 minutes and 30 seconds for the greatest coach in college basketball to come up with the plan. And he didn't, as UNC defeated Duke at home, 88-72. So, Dwayne, I'll let you go first on this. First, the shoe blowing out. Have you ever seen anything like that in a game that of that high profile that like literally everybody in the country's watching? And then the injury for Zion and kind of the fallout from that.
No, I've never seen anything like that at all. Like, that was probably one of the wildest things I've ever seen. Like, literally, that's not just a nightmare for for Duke, that's a nightmare for Nike because, how do you trust Nike when that shoe endorsement deal comes in? You saw the shadiness from Puma. Thought that would never happen to Pumas. And it was a wild sequence of events, but you could really just tell that, there was plenty of time to make adjustments, but I think the adjustments were made, just the players were just not into it. Like the wind was taken out of that whole stadium, and Carolina, being the savages that they are, took advantage as they should have. It's a rivalry game. You have deep seated hatred towards your rival. You don't feel sorry for anything that happens to them. So they did exactly what they were supposed to do in terms of taking advantage of the situation and literally blowing Duke out the water at home. So when this rematch comes on March 9th, we'll see what happens and we'll go from there.
If you had to put a percentage on it, what is your take on if Zion Williamson plays the rest of the regular season, or if he just sits it out and plays in the tournament and that's it?
I was at the time the injury happened, I was gonna say there was a 10% chance he returns, a 90% chance that he just goes ahead and gets ready for the draft. Coach K says he is going to come back, even though people have pretty much ethered Duke and the NCAA, rightfully so. But I would say now, even when Coach K said that and he's listed as day to day, I'll upgrade it to a 25% chance he returns and a 75% chance that he goes. But the only thing I could probably see him returning is if, Duke does have a deep run for the national title. They got RJ Barrett, they got Cam Reddish, but those two guys are going to have to start being leaders and being more assertive in order to what's the word I'm looking for? Have a shot.
This was a brilliant game plan by Mr. Roy Williams. It will get lost in all this Zion Williamson talk. And it's unfortunate that the kid got hurt, and, especially in such a high profile manner with all the celebrities and dignitaries in the crowd and everything. But when it comes to the actual playing of the basketball game, this was a clinic. Roy Williams took Coach K to the woodshed. I don't know if Zion was there, if it really would have mattered, because Duke's defense was non-existent. And, whatever you can say about the level of, they weren't into it or whatever. Well, so what? Tough luck. They got their ass whipped. And, it was a good night to be a Tar Heel. So hopefully Zion Williams does come back, though. I actually have had a chance to meet him and interact with him several times. He is not your typical Duke player. He is really nice skier, really personable. I actually call him the mayor because he's got time for everybody on campus. He's never, too busy or anything like that for people. So, I'd like to definitely see him come back, and definitely like to see him play in the final game of the year in Chapel Hill. And then everybody can see, that it might not have been a fluke, but that's just me. LSU, they got a big win as they upset Tennessee in overtime. Looked like Tennessee was going to be set up to be the new number one after Duke got beat, but nope, that's not the case. LSU played an inspired game, and I got the win in overtime. So your new number one for the second time this year. Gonzaga quietly has been handling their business out there on the West Coast during these late nights.
They're on the West Coast Conference. Of course they're supposed to handle their business.
Hey, man.
Like outside of St. Mary's and remotely BYU, there's no competition in the West Coast Conference.
Hey, man, you got to show up. You still got to show up.
I mean, I ain't hating on Gonzaga. Shout out to them, though. But the truth is the truth. They are in the West Coast Conference. I will say that.
So they're your new number one. But the team that I think everybody has really got their eyes on, and the team that has really played well and has been kind of under the radar for them, has been Kentucky. They dropped the bomb on Tennessee a couple of nights, about a week ago, when they had a big matchup against each other. I think they've won something like 8 or 9 in a row,
Yeah.
and they just been quietly making their way, up the polls since early in the season. They had some misfires and things, but yeah, Kentucky looks to be one of these teams that when you look up in tournament time, they may be one of the teams that nobody really wants to play, and it's kind of weird for them because they're sneaking up on people.
And don't forget about Sparty.
Yeah, they got a big win over Michigan on the road, on that will be Sunday night. So
Mm-hmm.
what it's getting tournament time in, and the coaches with the track records, they get their teams right here in middle of February, end of February tournament time. They conference tournament time. They get their teams whipped into shape, and you start seeing the 12 teams that really have a legitimate shot at maybe cutting the nets down. So as always, it's going to be fun. Now, one of those teams that's not really in that 12, and it's kind of an oddity this year, that would
Oh,
be your Kansas Jayhawks, Dwayne. Texas Tech hammered Kansas 91-62, all but ensuring that Kansas won't win the Big 12 regular season this year for the first time since 1989. Now, last year it looked like the streak was going to end, but you guys got some, losses by the teams ahead of you, and you guys rallied and kept the streak alive. But this year, you got 5 conference losses. It's not in the cards, my friend. So your assessment of this Kansas Jayhawks team, and are they going to be a threat going forward in March, or is this a throwaway season and come back next year, reload, and see what happens?
now, before we just write Kansas off and say the streak is over, they're only back. They're only back 2 games with
With what, 5 games to play?
5 games to play. One of those games is against the team that's leading the Big 12, those Wildcats in Manhattan, and that is actually a game tonight. So yeah, if Kansas loses this game, then we might as well just say the streak is over, and we can just cancel the rest of the cancel the streak, and then the House of Horrors known as Gallagher Iber Arena in Oklahoma, in Stillwater, Oklahoma State. They have to win that game. Oklahoma State's 10-17, but Bill Self, who is Oklahoma State alone, is not really good against the Cowboys in terms of playing in Stillwater. Then they got to go to Norman and take on the Oklahoma Sooners, and that's not going to be an easy game either. So yeah, actually not 5 games to play, 4 games to play. So it looks bleak, but all they got to do is at least tie. Because looking at K-State, they're at Kansas, and it's not going to be easy road for them either. Because they have to take on Baylor, then they have to go to Fort Worth, take on TCU, and then they got Oklahoma. And Bruce Weber, I love Slam. Any chance I got a chance to. Bruce Weber, I think this is the game tonight. Kansas State has to win this game in Lawrence, where Kansas is 15-0 this season. Kansas hasn't been a good away team, and that's what's been their downfall. 5 of their 7 conference losses have all been on the road, including the one in Manhattan. But they are the only unbeaten team in the Big 12, and they got 2 home games left. So they got to find a way to win these 2 away games in Oklahoma with the Cowboys and the Sooners. And all they got to do is at least tie. I mean, they won or shared the last 14. It looks insurmountable. It looks bleak. There's no real excuse. Nobody's going to show any sympathy or mercy. I mean, you've had the Souza ruled ineligible. You lost Udoka Azubuike for the season, which, in my eyes, for me, that's what really kind of took Kansas out of the national title equation. And then Lagerald Vick took a leave of absence to take care of personal and family issues. So a lot of things have happened. It's been a really snake bitten kind of year in Lawrence, but we just had to, that's really been next man up, and we just have to see what happens and go forward. But as with a lot of things, as much as it pains me to say it, all good things do come to an end. And if the streak is over, then that's going to be one of those things that just comes to an end. So yeah.
Trivia time. Do you know who the coach was the last time y'all didn't win the Big 12?
Last time we didn't win the Big 12, the coach was Bill Self, because they haven't won. They've won the share the last 15, but Larry Brown was a coach in '88, and then Roy Williams took over in '89. And '89, they were ineligible for that. They're ineligible because of NCAA violations and under Larry Brown. So the first year of Roy Williams, they were ineligible for the tournament, and they didn't win the conference. But Bill Self, I think Texas was the last team. Texas or Oklahoma State, they were the last team to win the Big 12 without Kansas being there.
Yep, it's been a very long time. So changing of the guard, it looks like in the Big 12, but like you said, never kept Kansas out. Bill Self is a great coach, and once they get outside their league into the NCAA tournament with teams that aren't as familiar with them, anything can happen. They get the right draw in the tournament, and everybody will forget about the 5 conference losses or more that they're going to have this year. So it's that time of the year in March. We've got most teams have 5 regular season games. Some teams have 4, and then of course the conference tournaments. And then we'll be talking about the big dance. Everybody will be bracket crazy, and Cinderella stories, and buzzer beaters, and
no brackets for me, because
all that good stuff.
Bracket free is the way to be.
So the next few weeks we'll definitely be talking more about the NCAA tournament. Can't wait. It's a good time of the year because spring training's coming back, and Masters and all this, so things are starting.
NASCAR's in full swing.
Yeah, get back into
the playoffs are coming.
The playoffs
on the ice and on the court.
Right. So with that being said, Dwayne, I'll turn it over to you, man, for your final thoughts, thank yous, and shout outs.
So shout out to all of the listeners. Shout out to the Know the Score family. Shout out to the CSPN family. And shout out to my family as well. My final thought is going to go to the ice, the Carolina Hurricanes. Apparently, Don Cherry, who is a hockey analyst known for his highly ridiculous, and eyesores that he calls suits, had the nerve to call the Carolina Hurricanes a bunch of jerks. Why did he call them a bunch of jerks? Because the Hurricanes have this new tradition this year that's called the Storm Surge. So after every home win, they wait till the opponent gets off the ice, and they have various celebrations, and it has become a hit in Raleigh. It has become a hit among Hurricane fans in the Carolinas, and the team has enjoyed it. It keeps them loose, and it brings them a lot of fun. But Don Cherry apparently channels his inner Abe Simpson and was not happy about it. He called them a bunch of jerks, said they shouldn't do this in the playoffs. So what did the Hurricanes do? They decided to embrace it, changed their Twitter file to that bunch of jerks with the fun celebrations. They also have a new shirt that's out called Bunch of Jerks. I'm going to get one, by the way, when I get paid on Friday because it's freaking awesome. But I hope the Hurricanes make the playoffs for this, because it would be good to have springtime hockey tailgates in the Carolinas again. And I also want to just see Don Cherry's blood boil when the Hurricanes win a couple of playoff games and they do the Storm Surge and all that good jazz. So shout out to the Hurricanes. Take warning. I am a fan of the Storm Surge, and I embrace the whole bunch of jerks that they embrace as well.
Okay, so I get a chance to see this very often since I get to work at the arena. So they've had some pretty cool ones. They did one where everybody kind of lines up like down. They make like a lane into the goal, and one of the rookies, Andrei Svechnikov, does like a slide into the goal.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. They did one last week where they did like baseball, like the natural Roy Hobbs, or like a walk-off home run.
Yeah,
that one was pretty cool. And then this past week, their last home game that they won, they did the limbo.
Yeah, and I think the limbo was the one that set old Don off there. But it's awesome. I enjoy it, and
you should see it in person. It's great, man. Like at the end of the season, beginning of the season, after the first game, they start doing the thing that the skull clap that the Vikings do.
Yeah,
and and we're kind of all looking around each other like, what the hell are they doing? Right. And then it gets louder and louder, louder. And then what they did for the very first one was they actually did the Storm Surge. They like all skated and just ran and jumped into the boards.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, that was cool. And then, as the year has gone on and they've, gotten better and won more games, now it's been like, okay, what are they going to do after the game? What are they going to do when they win? What are they going to do when they win? So it's definitely something for the home crowd. It's not disrespectful to the other team. Like you said, they do wait till the other team is off the ice, and it's just something special for the home crowd because we don't win a lot. We haven't won a lot of games at home, and that's changed this year. So it's definitely something that the home crowd can hang their hat on and get a chance to say, oh man, we saw something cool tonight after they won. So for me, I'll just tell everybody, please visit CSPN.us and support our sponsors. Help keep our podcast free over on the CSPN network, Audible.com, Amazon, Busted Tees. There's something for everybody. CSPN.us. Keep our podcast free tab at the top of the page. What I'm going to talk about for my final thought would just be NASCAR is back. Thank you to everybody who listened to my NASCAR preview show with John Haverland. Thank him for joining me as we talked about Daytona 500, and we also talked about the NASCAR season upcoming. Shout out to Denny Hamlin and Joe Gibbs Racing. They had a very tough offseason as basically the guy who Joe Gibbs' son, JD Gibbs, who was the point man in getting Joe Gibbs into NASCAR in the first place. He passed away. He battled a long neurological disease, and he passed away in the NASCAR offseason. And he was a driver for a little while, and his number was 11. And so he was the one who discovered Denny Hamlin. And when they put him in the car, his car number is number 11. So it was just fitting that on the first race since his passing, that the number 11 of Joe Gibbs Racing won the Daytona 500. It was a wreck fest. Half the cars got taken out in this huge melee.
Paul Menard.
Yeah, so it's restricted plate racing at its finest when it comes to the big crashes. And then on Sunday, the real season started as Brad Keselowski overcame a weekend stomach bug, and he won in Atlanta. This is the first race with the new rules package. They're trying to foster some closer racing, more pack style racing on the 1.5 mile track, so you don't get so spread out. But they did get spread out in Atlanta yesterday just because that track is such a difficult track to drive. But this week when they show up to Vegas, this should be the really good test of this package because apparently you can go all the way around the track without having to lift. You can just keep your foot down. Since they reduced the horsepower, they went from 750 horsepower to about 550 horsepower.
Wow.
So now the guys can basically on these tracks just keep it matted down, and if they can hold on to it in the turns, you just go around the track. And what that does is the more times you can do that and not break your speed, you just build up more momentum, and that's basically how you get to the front of these races. The person who can do that the most times and not have to break their speed is usually how you win races. So it'll be very interesting to see how this works. What they're trying to do is make it where they're closer together, and the teams that don't have as much money, if they have a good driver, they can sneak out a few more wins during the season. Yeah,
gives them a chance.
Right.
Because if you're not like a Hendrick or a Gibbs or a Roush, then it's kind of hard.
It's very hard. So hopefully that does work. I'm very much going to be intrigued by the first half of this NASCAR season. Hopefully I get to make it to a few races this year, and we'll get some, exclusive content for Patreon of a NASCAR weekend like I did last year for Charlotte and Richmond. So definitely stay tuned if you're a NASCAR fan to know the score here and also on our Patreon page at patreon.com/CSBN Media. So for the Libra icon, Dwayne, I'm Don De La Rente, and now you know the score. Thank you, kind sir.
No problem.
Go ahead and gotta get some clothes together for work tomorrow, and then I'm gonna edit this while Monday Night Raw is on. Should be a good one. Hopefully, the beginning and the end's gonna be good. I don't know about the middle.
Right.
So we'll see. But I'll get up with you, man. When something else happens, we'll kind of flesh it out like we did this past week.
Okay, cool.
All right, man. Be good. Be safe. Enjoy yourself.
You
all right, buddy.
You too. Talk to you later.
In the middle, what we have to do.